It was a cold winter evening, the kind of night when the streets felt lonelier than usual, and every step echoed in the silence of despair. Inside a small neighborhood pharmacy, the harsh white lights hummed softly, casting shadows on the cracked linoleum floor. A mother stood frozen near the counter, her trembling hands clutching a small brown paper bag. Inside that bag was life itself, a bottle of medicine her little boy needed to breathe. But her wallet was empty. Her eyes darted between the cashier's screen and the worn leather pouch she carried, as if sheer hope might magically summon the missing bills. Her lips parted as if to plead, but the words caught in her throat. Shame, fear, and desperation pressed heavily on her chest. She whispered to herself, "I can't afford this. I can't." Before we go deeper into this heart-touching story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the small miracles that strangers can bring into our lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a kind comment, and subscribe to our channel. I Am Kindness Corner. Together, we can spread light where it is most needed. The woman's name was Sarah. Life had been cruel to her in ways she never expected. Only a year ago, she had a steady job, a small apartment, and dreams of a better tomorrow for her 7-year-old son, Jacob. But then the layoffs came, followed by mounting bills, an eviction notice, and a struggle to put food on the table. The cruelest blow of all was Jacob's worsening asthma. His small chest often heaved in the middle of the night, gasping for air, his frightened cries breaking her heart as she tried to soothe him. Each month, the medicine grew harder to afford, and tonight, standing inside the pharmacy, she was faced with the brutal truth: she didn't have enough. The clerk behind the counter watched quietly. His name was Daniel. At first glance, he seemed like any ordinary store employee, a simple uniform, tired eyes, and a polite but distant manner. Yet, behind those eyes was a story of his own. Daniel had grown up poor, raised by a single mother who often had to choose between paying rent and buying medicine for his younger sister. He remembered vividly the nights when his mother cried silently, thinking no one noticed. He remembered the shame of being turned away at a pharmacy counter because they couldn't afford what his sister desperately needed. Those memories were carved into him like scars. As Sarah fumbled with the few crumpled notes she had, Daniel felt the air shift. He could see the way she bit her lip, the way her shoulders trembled as if holding back a storm. He glanced at the price on the register, $42. A small number for some, but an impossible mountain for her tonight. His heart ached. He looked at the medicine, then at the boy who stood beside her. Jacob's face was pale, his eyes tired, and the faint wheeze in his breathing was unmistakable. Daniel knew exactly what was at stake. Sarah finally pushed the bag back across the counter and whispered, "I'm sorry. I'll come back when I can." She turned to leave, her son's small hand clutched tightly in hers. Her pride screamed at her not to beg, but her heart shattered with every step she took away from the medicine that could ease her boy's pain. That was when Daniel made a choice, a quiet, unseen act of kindness. He picked up the bag, slid the bills from his own wallet, and rang up the purchase. Then, carefully, he placed the bag on the counter again and called softly, "Ma'am, you forgot this." Sarah turned, confusion flashing across her face. "But Don't worry," Daniel said gently, his voice calm but firm, "it's taken care of." Her eyes widened, filling with tears, but before she could speak, Daniel simply nodded, as if to say no thanks needed. For a moment, the world stood still. The noise of the humming lights, the chill outside, the heaviness of her burdens, everything faded. All that remained was a small act of humanity that carried the weight of salvation. Sarah took the bag with trembling hands, unable to stop the tears that spilled down her cheeks. She whispered a broken, "Thank you," and hugged Jacob close. Her son, too young to understand the sacrifice, only smiled faintly and leaned into her. As they walked out into the night, the medicine clutched tightly against her chest, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. But Daniel didn't do it for thanks. As the door closed behind them, he simply went back to stacking shelves. The quiet ache in his heart eased just slightly. To him, it wasn't just about money. It was about breaking a cycle, about giving someone what his own family once desperately needed but too often couldn't have. The days that followed were still hard for Sarah. Life didn't magically transform. The rent was still overdue, her fridge was still half empty, and her worries weighed heavily on her. Yet, every time she reached for Jacob's medicine, she remembered the faceless kindness of that clerk. And with that memory came strength, a reminder that even in a cold, harsh world, there were still people who cared. Weeks later, Sarah found a part-time job cleaning offices. It wasn't much, but it was something. She worked long hours, often until her back ached, but she did it with quiet determination. Every time she wanted to give up, she remembered the look in the clerk's eyes that night, not pity, but understanding. That memory became fuel. She promised herself that one day, when she was able, she would pass that kindness on. Daniel never expected to see Sarah again. But one evening, months later, she walked into the pharmacy with Jacob, this time with her head held higher. She could afford the medicine now, though barely. She wanted to say thank you again, but Daniel simply smiled, bagged the prescription, and nodded. He never mentioned what he had done, never asked for recognition, never sought credit. And in that silence lay the truest form of kindness, one that asked for nothing in return. What Sarah never knew was that Daniel himself lived paycheck to paycheck. Covering that medicine had meant skipping a meal or two, pushing off his own small bills. But he had no regrets. For him, kindness wasn't about abundance. It was about sacrifice, about giving what little you had when it mattered most. The world rarely celebrates such moments. They don't make headlines. They don't trend on social media. They are quiet, invisible threads woven into the fabric of humanity. Yet they are the very things that keep hope alive. And so, Sarah kept going, holding on to that night as proof that goodness still existed. Jacob grew stronger, his health improving bit by bit, his laughter filling the small apartment once more. Each time Sarah tucked him into bed, she whispered a silent prayer of gratitude, not just for the medicine, but for the stranger who reminded her that no one is ever truly alone. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to pause for a moment. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs to believe in kindness again, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to I Am Kindness Corner. By engaging, you help us spread stories that remind people of the beauty of compassion and humanity. And before we close, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with the words, "Kindness lives on," if you believe small acts of love can change lives in ways we may never fully see. Because sometimes, it isn't the grand gestures that heal the world, it's the quiet, unseen acts of kindness, like a store clerk who secretly paid for someone's medicine, proving that hope can be found in the most ordinary of places.